Asante sana for joining us for another classic episode of the Weekend Edition. I'm your host, Dr. Kingori. This mainly is about security. Once again, close protection, partly inspired by the tragic shooting of South African rapper AKA KDF. So we brought back on the show one of Kenya's top VIP protection security team. You love them on their first appearance and you will love them even more today. Tumeuliza sana about the opportunities in the sector, and I trust we will get to discuss that today. Cleven, Langi and Kingsley Litali are in the house. Wazi. Asante sana. We'll be talking to them in a bit, but first, let's talk about who is not in the house. Nominated Senator Karen Nyamu was this week kicked out of the August House for inappropriate dressing.
If Senator Karen Nyamu is not properly dressed, she has entered this house with sleeveless dress. And Mr. Speaker, you can rule whether that is appropriate.
Now, come on, man, give the lady a break. Now, for the relationship, we can understand. We can understand that. But now even the Senate cannot receive her with open arms. I know the question on most people's minds is, why was the other senator even bothered by Karen Nyamu's hands? Like, how are they affecting him? Well, in his defense, he was just doing his work. Part of the responsibilities of an MP or a senator is to check the other arms of government. Now, yes, but then again, I think they should have let this slide. Like, I think they should have. Have you seen her all outfit, Maze? It was dope. It's interesting also that Karen Nyamu was not the only member controversially kicked out of the Senate this week. Senator Gloria Orwoba was also ejected from the House over a stained suit that she wore to advocate for free distribution of sanitary towels and sanitary towels to schoolgirls and women in prison. That's a very noble cause. Yes, it's true, very noble. But the way she was ejected just shows how committed the government is to the promise of serikali haitaki kuona Mkenya yote akimwaga damu. Now I take that perspective because I have trained myself to look at everything in positive light. Instead of always focusing on the negative, just know that there's always a different view.
Is based on our standing orders, on how we should debate, on how we should carry ourselves, on how we should dress. Senator Nyamu, I'm afraid you don't fit the bill. And I'm going to ask you to leave the chambers, get properly dressed, and come back to the chamber.
Show me a better video of the Kenya Kwanza government pushing for change. And before you even start up at, kwani the push for change only happens in Senate? Nope. It's across board. Just this week, the government announced new uniforms for the police. This is one change that actually has come faster than Kenyans expected. Elsewhere, a Nigerian pastor has been arrested for carrying an AK-47 rifle to the pulpit to make his point. I think he wanted to illustrate how Zacchaeus the tax collector was shot. Well, Bandits report that from that sermon alone, offerings went up 74%. And it's also interesting to note that the pastor's name is Uche Aibe. Like, watch Aibe. No, serious, that's his name. You can look it up. And atheists in Nigeria for the first time have come out in support of a Christian preacher because, according to them, this was the most legit man of God they've seen yet, because this is a preacher that brings the message of heaven and carries a root that people can see with their naked eyes. Nani anataka kuona ufalme wa Bwana? People will be honest in church that day. Now, in his defense, the pastor has apologized profusely over the failed attempt to give a fiery sermon. And in other news, JKUAT, Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, has received 127 million shillings funding for snail breeding research. Yes. Can you believe that? 127 million bob to breed snails. Kwa wale wajui, breeding ni kuzalisha. Yes, we have joked about the breeding expertise of JKUAT students. But that was just it. That just jokes. The correct statement we made on the show actually was that the devil lives in Juja. And that was accepted. I never foresaw a time when JKUAT student would get international recognition for it, for breeding. Like, do you know how good you've got to be at something for someone to invest millions in you. Ufundishe mnyama hiyo kitu. And not any animal, a snail. But now those are just ideas, by the way. Those are the things that were playing in my mind when I first read the headline. Turns out there's a very big opportunity in the snails industry. The breeding being funded is not the one we joke about, JKUAT. Apparently, there's a high demand for snail products in the global market, and JKUAT beat other countries for the funding to advance the breeding research. This deserves a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. Asante. When I say snail products, we are talking of an interesting range of products from snail meat. Yes, snail meat. Kwanza, hii ni special dedication kwa watu wangu wa Embu. Ukienda kwa hoteli sasa ukuwe specific, ukiulizwa utakula matumbo ama marumbo fry. Ukijaribu kutweng shauri yako, wanatengeneza pia organic fertilizer, animal feeds, cough syrup. Dawa ya kukohoa, imagine that. For this I actually think I know how it works. Cough syrup from a snail, you do not even need rocket science. In fact, you don't even need to process the snail. Just show the snail to the patient. You either stop coughing, ama nikupee hii kitu unyonye. Utanyonya bili, ama uache kukohoa. Utapona manzi. Oh, and they can also use snails to make skincare products. Aki, this will make people think compliments. Aki, babe, si una glow. Umejipaka nini? Anyway, we have a great show lineup for you. We have Cleven, Langi, and Kingsley, Litali on the other end of this short commercial break. See you guys in a bit. Welcome back to the Weekend Edition. I'm your host, Dr. Kingori. When we talk close protection, we have two of the finest gentlemen in that field in the country. Cleven, Langi, and Kingsley, Litali are in the house. Sawa, karibuni tena mazee.
Asante.
Once again, hata tutaenda mbali, we'll go right into it. The former regional commander wa Rift Valley alikuwa kwa teli juzi akasema wale mabandits wenye wamekuwa big problem in the country as far as security is concerned ni wa deadly kuliko Al-Shabaab. Right? And then yes. And then tuko na different levels of dealing with the bandits. Right? Like kuna level ya watumiwe polisi, kuna level ya sasa KDF inaingilia, si ndio? Like how many of you guys will it take ku sort your story ya nauliza cause sisi the impression we have tukifikiria Kingsley na nini tunafikiria Van Damme na Chuck Norris, so that's why. I believe you have already probably assessed and thought about the situation that we have as a security expert. What do you think? Like mnaweza chukua contract kama hiyo?
Well, I would say it comes down to perspective. And currently, like if you're talking about the people we have in the private sector,
yes,
ukiwapeleka huko wataangamia wengi sana.
Yeah,
I guess it also comes down to training.
No. Wait. Cleven, before you respond, are you saying that you're only dangerous in Nairobi?
No.
Ukiingizwa Turkana, that's it.
No, that's not the case. But then again, wale ambao wako huko wameshapiga risasi miaka yao yote because they've been dealing in firearms, right?
Yes.
Hapa Nairobi, how many of us have come into contact with firearms, for example? How many would you presume? Very few. So if you're taking somebody who's inexperienced to somewhere, wakutana na watu ambao wamekuwa experienced kwa hiyo uwanja, wataumia, and those guys are in combat all the time. Hapa unakula blue band, unalala, uone jua kidogo tu ya Nairobi, already you can see what is happening to people. Yes. Everybody's running around, while those guys are quite experienced, to be fair. So that's what I'm saying. It will come down to perspective. Kitu ya pili, it will come down to the kind of training that we have to be able to combat those kind of threats and issues.
Yes.
And that's why the government is using its own servicemen and ladies to go and fight in that fight. But private sector, tusidanganye.
Kingsley, ulikuwa unataka kusema kitu
about
being you're not trained for Turkana.
Not really. What I think what he means generally, the the government has its own systems. There are many dynamics that you know, revolve around the particular incident that is happening, especially in the, you know, the areas of Turkana and Northeastern, which has led to the government giving it an, you know, incorporating different arms of government to solve it. A magnitude, you know, incidences of that magnitude, you know, require a lot of machinery and thoughtfulness, including political goodwill. In the sense, when you look at it this way, change comes from within. If they, you know, in my opinion, if they decide, you know, as the leaders on the ground decide to talk to their populace and tell them that, hey, this is our area, this is our home, and we need to make sure that we defend it in all good ways. By defending it, I mean we need to start opening it up to many things like schools. You find like the government, you know, most of the times, you know, for the longest time have been reacting. You know, they're more of reactive. That's why they're not getting that, you know, candid solution. But right now, I think probably they're getting it right by coming up with ways to open up the area so that at least wasionekane kama the third wheel. Most of them, they think they're not in Kenya in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is why they're feeling marginalized, and you know, the things that we find common in Nairobi and other counties are not so common to them. So the basic needs, we start from the baseline. Our baseline should be, let us, you know, also support them in you know, appreciating their own home, you know, instead of just going there and, you know, causing havoc and then back.
Yeah.
So back to the private sector question, I don't think the private sector is capable. The kind of machinery and also equipment required for that, you can't target on, you know, the private sector per se, because this requires, it's a political thing, and requires, you know, politics dictates a lot of things, including economic growth and things like that. So we need the goodwill of the leaders on the ground. We need, you know, support for, you know, the arms of government that are going to act on it. So for the private sector, uongo, ndakwa nakudanganya, we won't manage.
That's probably one of the most discouraging statements.
Yeah.
Nimewaisikia from you guys.
Yeah.
Because I thought, like, unaona, let's say for example,
Yeah.
my belief in what you guys are capable of. Kwanza Kingsley, last time ukikuja hapa ulikuwa kwanza confident kusema you know what you're capable of. Now, you tell me that, let's say for example, nilikuwa nataka just to flex.
Yes.
Like let's say I'm an adrenaline junkie.
Yes.
So I want to walk through the valley of the shadow of death.
Yes.
With you guys as a backup. So it means I will still have to fear evil. We'll all be depending on God under those circumstances.
Let me take you back to what we told you the other time.
Yes.
About matters close protection. What would be your objective as a VIP going to that area?
Touring Turkana. Having exclusive shots of Kerio Valley.
Yes.
Yes, but you guys are not visible.
Okay.
You guys are behind the scenes.
Okay.
But you're the backup. But it's interesting to know that me and you in Kerio Valley, same group.
No. That's not the case. You were talking about now the private sector taking over what the government is doing right now. That's what I was saying. If you are going as our principal,
Yes.
and you're going to that area,
Oh.
definitely we'll go there with you. And our mission would be to make sure that you meet your objective there. If it is to take pictures or you want to do whatever, we'll make sure that you do that. But us as the private sector now coming in and taking the position of government to tackle bandits, and that's not in our forte.
But I'll say also, for me to provide good security to my client, first, it starts with honesty, right? I have to tell you the conditions on the ground, and that you can do by many means possible, because the government gives updates in terms of what is happening there. There's global news, local news showing you what is happening on the ground. So first, I have to advise my client, knowing very well the kind of situation they're going to face there. If at all, then they decide that they're comfortable with the environment that we are going to, then well and good. Then you can now say that you'll be escorted there by your close protection officers. But then again, as I said, it all comes down to training. Kenya as it is, it's a growing, I would say, country in terms of close protection provision. Because as it is, most of the guys, they are using bouncers, and then you think that those guys are close protection officers, so you go find somebody who's done, say, kickboxing or boxing, and they are, you know, you're puffed up, then you think, okay, this is it for me. Unfortunately, that is not the case. You require to have a lot of knowledge as far as close protection is concerned. Each and every detail of the team member that will be playing in that particular close protection team. On top of that, even a little bit of medical experience is necessary. So as you can see, whether you're in Nairobi, Turkana, wherever it is in the world, you still need this today to be able to survive as a close protection officer. Otherwise, you'll be cheating yourself, the client will be cheating themselves, and it's kind of a disservice to both the client, to the officer themselves, and the profession in itself.
Thank you for explaining that as a principal, you can take someone to Kerio Valley and then come back. Yes, you've said you advise your client.
Yes.
But in terms, so that we can put this to rest, in terms of the training you guys get and in terms of how well you trust your abilities. President akikuita akikwambia kuna mtu ako na duka Kerio Valley, enda uniletee huyo jamaa. You can bring the guy. Who's the now, as a contract. Yes, in terms of you can accompany a principal, mwende mutoke. I just know how bad these people are.
Yeah, you know, we need to remember that they are Kenyans. Yeah, and it is good and you know, prudent enough we treat them as such. If we focus so much on what does not work, then that is what we'll be seeing. You know, we live what we experience. So if at all we are, you know, looking at them as they are people who, you know, they are not Kenyan, you know, for lack of a better word, then that is one of the steps that, you know, is the problem in the first place.
You're so polite in a story, Kingsley,
no, I'm not.
That it will make it like your approach to Kerio Valley, to us, say they are Kenyans, would be cancelling.
No, that means no, that means that as much as we you know, we are dealing with them in, you know, many security avenues, including the military and the police, we need to give them the respect they deserve as citizens. The reason why the military is there in the first place is for support, you know, for support. Because the military, as we all know, its mandate is the outside threats. The police are taking lead simply because their threshold of service is the internal threats. When we come in as the private sector, we can't work in isolation. And that is why you find that as much as we are close protection operatives, we work closely with the police who are in the government, or, you know, the military at some point. That is why there's that interdependency between the agencies. So that is why I was saying I'm not being polite about, you know, giving them counseling, as you say. What I mean is that we need to deal with them, but at the back of our mind, we need to know that they are also Kenyans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Alafu, you say the military is there for support.
Yes.
The military's mandate is to deal with external threats.
Yes.
So for support, in my simple mind, it would mean that KDF are there with the police, but KDF stands aside and shows the police, shoot this one. Like, I would like to understand how support comes in. Like, they are not allowed to.
No, you know, when we are talking about, I don't want to speak much into the forces and all.
Yes.
What I know is that when there is a multi-agency approach, there is something that is called the incident command structure. So this is how you know, the level of threats are put and the threshold. They come in together as a whole team and they discuss on how they want to tackle that particular incident. Yes. So it's just common sense, and it's also constitutional that the military deals with external threats. So I saw in the news that, you know, people are a little bit perplexed that why is the military, you know, being the one supporting, why aren't they taking the front? So it's just common sense that the military deals with external threats and the police deals with internal threats. So in the incident command structure, it is easy for them to work as a team, collaboratively, but now the military is just supporting. If the military acts upon its own people, then, you know, what kind of threat will that be? So they are constitutional in whatever they're doing. I don't want to speak on behalf of the military.
Yes.
I think there's somebody else who will speak.
You've made that very clear. Asante sana. The reason why I started by asking you about the bandits is from my view and from the view of most people who watch us and the people who actually subscribe, most of the people who wanted us to bring you back, you guys are out there. So, like, we have a solution. Kama you guys, like, let's say kuna level of training of the police, level of training of, let's say, from the regular police, GSU, there is wherever you guys fall in, but I believe muko mahali, uko juu, so I don't know the ranking, right? So it's like you assess the threat level. It's like you see two people fighting, right? You see two people fighting, but you don't intervene. You know, you can manage the situation, but let's see. Like, let's see where this how far this can go. Because I'm assuming, like, you are Kenyans too. See?
Yes,
Like,
yes,
that's a Kenyan situation.
Yes.
Right? When I look at it from an external perspective, like 6 guys were sent to finish the Osama
Benghazi.
bin Laden story. Like 6 people instead of a whole army. 6 people. So I'm like, in Kenya, kama ni Kerio Valley, you could call Cleven, nini na kadem kamoja. Like, go sort that story.
Yeah.
But then back to close protection. There are instances where something happens in terms of security. Kama AKA passed on juicy.
Yeah.
He was shot, and then one of the conversations was his security walilala class. Right? Are there moments in close protection that as an officer unaangalia labda the client's time is here? Like, you don't want to get into what God is doing in their lives. Like, you don't want to get between. Like, maybe that's their time. Are there instances where you can make such decisions?
No, I don't think as a close protection officer you have the right to. It's just like the doctor. Whether you are dying or not, they'll still try as much as possible to the best of their ability to, you know, help you still continue with your life. So as far as close protection is concerned, I think it's just lapses of communication and being in proper communication with your client or, you know, principal at this particular time. And you see, and also in a dependent training who your close protection officer to understand the client and the movement of the client. Before I provide the service to potential client or principal in this case, first you must look at your profile and what does your profile attract as a potential client or customer. So you have to look at that. Is it religious? You know, you can attract those religious radicals, political extremists. All that is there, depending on whatever you are dealing with, right? So with that, it will advise me as a close protection officer, whoever as a company providing with the service, to understand how many people do I have to allocate to you at any given time, and the level of training that is required to deal with that particular client. So Harper, in this case, you'll find that from my understanding is that he went out with a very close friend. The guys crossed the street, they came and shot him at point blank and walked away. So I guess if he had security, then in this case he did not communicate with the security, or the security had lost touch with reality, because at any given time you must have sight of your client.
So in terms of communication, you mean like as a client, you have to be open,
Yes.
like these are my enemies.
Yes. Not necessarily, but you see, if I'm providing you the service, you have to tell me, for example, this is my schedule for the day, right? So once you've given me the schedule for the day, then I know how to arrange you know, the rest of the events for that, as far as the security personnel is concerned. So I'll say, okay, today our principal is going to a place A, B, C, D, you know. So this is the information we as the close protection officers have to be able to escort our principal. Now that will dictate also, depending on the places we are going to, the level and the amount of people I will have in my team. I could say, for example, now some will require to have SAPCO, which will stand for Security Advanced Party Coordinators, those like advanced party. Some will require us to have CASCO, Counter-Assault and Surveillance Coordinators, and the CAS team members. Some requires us to have PESCO, Personal Escort Security Coordinators, and this is where you have even the PPO, the Personal Protection Officer. I mean, the main guy, or the bodyguard. So to help with the entire thing. Now for him, in this case, if whatever, was it a restaurant or what?
Yeah, it was in
this restaurant, then I would call it like an ad hoc, where nobody would know that you are there. But then again, there's social media these days. So you take pictures, post, and thereby, if I'm your enemy, I can track where you are. So regardless of the number of people, sometimes, as far as security is concerned, now, once you've exposed your movement and your location, me as the enemy, I'm already prepared. I know what is going to occur. Your team, sometimes, you know, you have in the back of your mind, you have that we must secure a client at all costs. But of course, we're all human beings. Depending on the team you have, there's that laxity as well.
Okay.
Before you know it, somebody can come and spray the whole vehicle or wherever the restaurant where you're at. They don't care as long as they get you as the individual they're looking for.
That's it for the Weekend Edition. See you next week. My name is Dr. Kingori.